Welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. Super excited for this week's guest, Joe Pane. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, young man.
For the listeners who don't know who are you and what do you do?
All right. So I've got a psychology and sociology background. I started my coaching and training business back in 2006. There's two main areas of expertise in my field, emotional fitness, which we will explore here if you want to, and behavioural profiling. So those two combined is what I deliver to organisations, groups, and I've got my own private communities that do my accreditation programs. Been married for 30 years, twin boys at 17, and I run. That's it.
Love it.
Yeah.
What's the time where you've had to summon more courage than any other time in business?
Many times. So starting, and in the first couple of years, I had a fantasy going, Cody. The first 3 years of my business, I fantasized about opening a cafe because I figured that would be easier than doing what I'm doing, selling the invisible. And I never seriously contemplated, but that fantasy kept me going because it's like, do you realize how hard it is to do that? And I just kept showing up. So yeah, there were many moments where I wanted to fold, but I came from a job. After I finished my psychology degree, I was lucky enough back in the 90s to land a job as a rehab counsellor at Ford Motor Company. And it was a terrible job on many, many levels. So the fire of that to get out was stronger than anything else, and that really kept me going. So, but in those first few years, there were many moments of being tempted to fold, but to what? So, and that was it. To what? Nothing. So we'll keep moving.
Yeah. What's been something that you faced off with recently then?
With the launching of my programs, it's been an incredible shifting landscape in the last 12 months. What worked for us 18 months ago just doesn't work. So re-navigating that, re-educating, bringing on different types of experts to help us out, that's been incredible because the shifting floor in 20 years of business, the first 15 years, the changes were just slow. Like what worked last year will still work. But that's what's been challenging. So, and I think we're getting on top of it.
Yeah. One of the things that we talked about when we first connected was one of the things that you love to talk about, which is uncertainty. So I'd love to dive into that.
Yeah.
And especially with the shifting landscape at the moment, both in business and in the world. It's going to be a very great chat. What do you see play out for most people when it comes to uncertainty?
Most people have got a very average relationship with uncertainty. They correlate it with fear for a whole host of reasons why that is true. There's lots of reasons. Nature, looking at that pretend tree over there, nature shows us that uncertainty actually correlates with growth. And we all know that the most difficult things we've ever done have contributed the most to who we are today. There's that part. The other part is that I'll say the business of uncertainty is no different today than what it's always been. And the reason why I say that is because, like yourself, Cody, when you started your own business, when you start a new relationship, when you begin anything new, we all need to remember and realize that what we're actually doing is investing in a new set of problems that need to be solved. To solve those problems, you have to navigate uncertainty. It's life. It's the fabric of everything. Without it, nothing grows. And if nothing grows, everything dies. So in my world, and what we do with the work of, because emotional fitness is measured by the quality of your relationship with uncertainty. So your level of emotional fitness will determine how well you will solve those problems to get to the next level, to get to the next level, to get to the next level. So when we realize that what we're doing in life is continually investing in a new set of problems that need to be solved, it shifts the way that we look at uncertainty. We start correlating it with growth rather than fear. And it's really easy, as I'm sure you can appreciate, to default to fear, depending where your eyes are landing every day and what you decide will take your attention. You know, if you want to tune into Fear FM, just read the first 2 pages of the paper every day. You know, recession's coming. This is coming. That's happened. We don't know what's going to happen here. Market's this, market's that. Should I invest? No. Should I spend? No. Fuel crisis, can't go on holidays. I mean, please. So where do you place your attention? Impacts how you navigate anything that's difficult in your life. And uncertainty comes, there's 5 different levels of uncertainty that exist in all of our lives. Or if I go across ways, to use the metaphor of a swimming pool, the shallow end of the pool, variety, ankle height water, fun. Take a different road to work today. Go down somewhere, just taste something different. Go to different, no big, that's fun. The next level of uncertainty is variety becomes adventure. Adventure is a little bit more serious, where you might decide to go to a non-English speaking country that you don't know much about and you just hang out there for a month. Adventure. Or you might try a new sport, whatever. Then adventure, the next level, which is the pivotal level, is challenge. And challenge is where you're doing something that is genuinely hard, whatever it is, physical, creatively, metaphysical, whatever challenges you. And that is the doorway where one becomes a conscious inviter of uncertainty into our lives. Because if we don't become a conscious inviter of uncertainty, what will happen is the last 2 levels, or the deep end of the pool, will be thrown into the deep end of the pool. Because from challenge, we go to problems, and from problems, we go to full-blown crises. And so far, and I'm very happy to be wrong about this, Cody, at 56 years of age, it's like, so far I've found the more I press the challenge accelerator button, or the button, or whatever it is, life doesn't have a reason to throw a crisis at me because I'm growing. But if we avoid taking responsibility for any challenges that we can embrace, or opportunities that we have, I have one of my sayings in my trainings is, you are either squeezing life or life is squeezing you. Either way, something's getting squeezed. So you may as well decide whether you want to squeeze it or it will squeeze you. So I'm sure there was an answer to a fine question you asked, but I can't remember what it was.
All good. That's the conversations I like. Yeah, we talk about it in the work that we do, is the law of growth.
Yeah.
Which is you will either create your challenges, or your challenges will chase you. They chase you around in every other area of life. You avoid it in business, then it starts chasing you into your relationship, or it starts chasing you into your family. And these are the things that play out for most people. It's like they don't consciously create their challenges, so then it starts chasing them, and it shows up as crises. It shows up as that metaphor that everyone talks about, which is, it starts as the feather, and then it get the brick, and then get the Mack truck. And most people who live in that place are really looking for some level of certainty within that. That's what they're searching for. They're searching for that certainty, especially about who they are in that moment. Because if they're going through that death of, who they've been in their life, they're changing their identity, then that's when they feel like they're most uncertain and they don't know who they are. And if they don't know who they are, then how do they operate in the world? How do you support people when they're going through that shift of, their identity?
Love it. So the emotional fitness formula, which is the work that I do, there's 5 core focus areas, of which one is identity. Because identity sits at the psychological throne. There's lots of definitions out there of what identity is. My favorite definition is that it's what you allow yourself to be defined by. And what defines you owns you. What defines you owns your entire psychological landscape. There's 2 different levels of identity. There's local identity, which is you, and there's macro identity, which is like a universal pattern that the entire population is going through. Carl Jung defined 4 stages of identity that are universal. The first stage is typically in our teens, early 20s, mid-20s, sometimes late 20s. He referred to it as the athlete archetype. This is where we define ourselves by our material possessions and our body. The core driving question that sits at the seat of that person's psychology is, what do you think of me? What do you think of my clothes? What do you think of my car? What do you think of my thing? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And so they've outsourced their esteem to the world's opinions. And so it's therefore not surprising that most teenagers and people in their 20s secretly or overtly have got low self-esteem because their identity is defined by something out there. Then as our responsibilities expand and we go into our late 20s and into our 30s, Jung defined how we then start to evolve naturally. We organically shift into the second stage, which is what he called the warrior stage, the hunter, warrior, hunter. And the core driving question evolves from, what do you think of me? To what can I get? Get the skills, get the experience, get the qualification, get the business, get the girl, get the guy, get the house, it's a building phase of getting to, it's the beginning of just starting to get to know who we are. But it's a building phase. It's an establishment phase. And most people are stuck in that until their 40s. Not necessarily stuck, but we're in that. And then at some point between 40 and 55 on average, there's a shift that happens, a values evolutionary expansion. And in the emotional fitness work, we say that the athlete and the warrior together is what we define as the ambition-driven world, which is egocentric. Nothing wrong with it. It's what builds the world that we're in. All the material things that are in this room are built in the ambition-driven world. Phenomenal. As long as it doesn't own you. Then what happens is we go through some kind of crisis or embracing a new challenge, or we change path. We let go of this career path and go to this career path, or we move to a different part of the world, or whatever it might be. And Jung says that this is a shift into the third phase, which is the statesperson. And this is where, for the first time, you begin to wake up and realize, holy crap, my life has never been about me, it's about others. Statesperson's core driving question evolves from what can I get to, what can I give? It's mission-based. It's the meaning-driven world. And then there's the fourth phase, which is the spirit world, which is a whole conversation separate to this. Unless you want to talk about it, we can, but that's a whole different conversation. And the spirit phase is where the spirit archetype is the core driving question is, what am I? What is consciousness? What is the universal intelligence that's unique, like the same between us? As Wayne Dyer used to say, the intelligence that sees through your eyes is identical to the intelligence that opens the rose. Like, it's all the same. We need a nice bottle or two of Shiraz for that. Not that I'm encouraging alcoholism. So that's the universal. That's the universal journey that we're all on from identity. Then there's a local identity. It's what I call your iOS, your internal operating system. So I don't know how old you are, but as I've already said, I'm 56. So I'm up to version 5.6. So every year your identity is upgrading, whether you know it or whether you don't. It's like when your iPhone upgrades at night. Like the next morning, it's like, oh, it's a different little thing here. Psychologically, we are upgrading all the time. Part of becoming emotionally fit is keeping up with who you've become. Are your belief systems or what you've conveniently assumed to be true relevant in 2026? It might have been relevant in 2015, but is it relevant now? Your attitude toward this, that, and the other. So that identity shift individually, every year we're going through that upgrade. So you look like you're a version 3.2 or something. And I hope I'm not too far off that. So 5.6, whatever version you are, every year there's something shifting within how you see yourself. And that journey is contained within the macro, which is that athlete, warrior, statesperson spirit. And even though those four universal phases, I've said them linearly, it's not a lineal thing. You are going up and down all the time. Like I shared with you before we started recording this, I'm training for a marathon. That's all athlete. Not literally athlete, it is, but it's taking care of the body. It's taking care of the nutrition. It's taking care of all the material things that support that. As long as you understand that that's not what you are, but it's something that you're doing to create an experience for yourself. So, so what happens is for people to evolve, they need to start asking themselves some intelligent questions like, what aspects of myself no longer serve me in 5.6? What aspects of myself do I need to let go of that were useful once that no longer serve me? What aspects of me I have not given the opportunity to shine yet that 5.6 will appreciate? What do I need to stop tolerating? What do I need to begin embracing? There's a whole host of questions that we have around this, and that brings the process to your conscious awareness. And so this identity shift is going on all the time. It's when people don't keep up with who they're becoming, where they're still in the same life situation with the same level of relationship, where one day, and this happened to me, where one day when I was in my 30s, where one day you go, gee, why aren't I excited about this anymore? Why aren't I engaged with my life anymore? Why? I was excited when I bought that car. I don't care about buying, why are the things that used to light me up don't light me up anymore? And that is where you haven't kept up with who you've become. So, and that's the environment giving us very harsh feedback that we haven't done that. So So all of this is happening, whether we are aware of it or not, just like gravity, whether you choose to believe it or whether you don't, gravity will still do its thing. Psychologically, these patterns exist whether we know it or whether we don't.
I love that. Yeah, we talk about it in terms of more 7-year cycles, but it's ultimately the same journey with different language. And that's one of the things that I'm already loving about this conversation is there's a lot of distinctions around similar topics, just with different models and maps. But ultimately, the universal truths that play out for humans are all the same, regardless of whether it's a Jungian model or a different model. What do you find is one of the things that people most resist and reject about them shifting through their identities?
It's a clinging on to past. So I'm going to make a couple of comments about anxiety and depression. Before I make these comments, to anyone listening to this, I want to say this with the greatest of respect and sensitivity because it's a complicated thing. You can have 5 people lined up here who are depressed. All of them experience it uniquely. Same with anxiety. I'm not going to touch free floating. I'm not going to touch clinical. We're just going to go into normal depression and anxiety. So the issue that people have, to answer your question, is if you're feeling depressed more than anything else, you're spending more time in the past than you are in the present. You're riddled in regret. You're trying to change something that no longer matters anymore. You're living something that no longer exists. It's like when I left to come here yesterday, there's a photo of, an old photo of my wife and my sons when they were 4. Beautiful photo in this room that we're in. I just remember exactly where it was. Beautiful photo. It's wonderful. And this is going to sound a bit cold and callous, but I've got no attachment to it because those people do not exist anymore. So when we're spending more time in the past than now, we're depressed. When we're spending too much time in the future, we're getting anxious. And there was this guy, I don't know whether you've heard of him, Cody, a guy, I can't remember his first name, but he's a writer. His surname is Alto, A-L-T-O. And he said, get this, you're going to love this, Cody. Anxiety is wasted imagination. Don't you love that? And that's what most people do when it comes to people who are experiencing anxiety. It's wasted imagination. It's trying to control the what-ifs, which are uncontrollable, and a whole host of other things. So it's about being where your feet are. It's about where you're at now, immersing in this conversation right now. The drive home is the drive. That's later. It's whatever happens after that, it's later. It's like you can't do anything about that. The drive here, well, that's already done. So you can't do anything about whatever happened on the road. Nothing happened. And then coming here, it's like, we're here. So when you're here, immersed in, focused on another beautiful person, you can't be depressed. You can't be anxious. Because we've got limited time, I'm simplifying what I'm saying because there's a lot more to it. But now the other thing is that what defines is a strong word, what influences what part of the timeline you tend to spend more time in is your behavioural profile. Now, you would have heard of DISC and Myers-Briggs. So, for example, something I've discovered recently, a pattern. I love discovering new patterns. I'm sure you do too.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, well, get this, you're going to love this because maybe you haven't heard this before, or maybe you have. We'll see. So in DISC, you've got DI energies, the dominant and the influential, right? They are what we call future assurance-based thinkers. So when they make a decision, they're looking at how it impacts their immediate future. The I energy is looking at who it impacts that they're going to be working with. The D energy looks at, is this going to help me more efficiently and effectively get to my goal? It's all future assurance-based. And what's interesting, in the 20 years I've been doing this, and I don't have official research on this, but I have noticed that there's a correlation that most people who are suffer or are vulnerable to anxiety are future assurance-based thinkers. And the SC energy, the stability-based and the analytical type, are what we call past assurance-based thinkers. These types of thinkers make decisions based on historical narrative, historical experience, historical data, historical research. So they're spending a lot of time looking at the past, and they're more vulnerable to depression. Now, this is a pattern that I've found now for many, many years. I should actually collate all the data and just prove it to people. But that also influences. But once you are aware, as we've said, a mentor of mine said to me my first year of coaching, just remember that 95% of this journey is awareness. So you can override these patterns when you are aware of them. Once you know the pattern no longer controls you. So I thought I'd just share that other pattern, the DI over here and the SC over here, because, I find that really, really fascinating.
What have you found as your, like, I love all of that. And I'd love to know, what have you found as your desire to be able to create pattern recognition, to be able to develop certainty?
It's everything. Pattern recognition is everything. Patterns exist. They're everywhere. The emotional fitness formula is a pattern recognition instrument specializing in noticing patterns of uncertainty in your life, or how you relate to them, or how you respond, or how you react. It's everything. I don't know whether you've heard of Naval Ravikant. Naval Ravikant said that intelligence is measured by your ability to get what you want out of life. To get what you want out of life, it's good, isn't it? Because it covers everything.
Yeah.
So, and I love the simplicity. And his simplicity, his sophistication is expressed through his simplicity. It's just beautiful. So I'll say that again to the listeners. I can't look at that. I'm not meant to look at that camera, so I'm looking at you.
I always look at I start talking to the sound tech and everyone always stuff all the way through. I'm like,
Justin told me not to look at that camera. So I'll repeat that because it's worth repeating. He said that intelligence is measured by your ability to get what you want out of life. Your relationship with uncertainty has a massive role in you getting what you want out of life, because for you to get what you want out of life, you have to become something that you're not yet. You have to navigate the fears. The biggest fear that we all have is the fear of judgment, which is the fear of rejection, which is the fear of not being enough, the fear of not belonging, the fear of not being loved. It's all under the umbrella of fear of being judged. You've got to deal with that. Just deal with it. Judgment of self. The peanut gallery, if you put weight to that, which is hilarious. Listen to the one that's in the arena with you. If they've got a judgment or a criticism, listen to it. Is it accurate? If it's accurate, do something about it. If it's not accurate, move on. You've got to navigate all that. So emotional fitness or uncertainty is there for us. It's right there for us to walk through, because you won't get what you want out of life if you've got a messed up relationship with uncertainty. You've got to be the bison, Cody. I didn't know this. I recently learned that when the storms hit, the bison run toward the storm because it's the fastest way to the other side. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And I just say to people now, just be the bison, man. I love that. So I often get an objection to that definition of Naval's. People say, well, I don't know what I want. and so, whoops, I looked at the camera again. So I don't know what I want. So how do I work out what I want? I remember some guy, I can't remember his name. He was being interviewed. No, it was an ad lib thing. Someone was saying, Da Vinci was interviewed once about the statue of David, and they asked him about how he did this amazing thing, and he said, all I did was chip away what was not David. And so when someone says, well, I know what I don't want, but how do I work out what I do want? You start taking action in any direction, and you'll start to work out. The David statue will start to appear in front of you. You can't work it out by staring at your navel. You can't work it out through meditation. That has its place, but you don't work it out that way. You work it out by trying stuff, doing stuff. How do you know if she's the right girl, if he's the right guy? You've got to go out on a date, man. You've got to start with a date and work it out. Get a vibe, get a feel, have a coffee. I don't know, do something. And it's the same with everything, especially in business. You know, like, how do I know if I'm built for business? Just have a go. Start. See what happens. See what comes up. See what aspects of yourself you discover, because that's the greatest gift of certainty, Cody. The greatest gift of certainty is it introduces you to aspects of you that you didn't know existed. That's the beauty of it. And when you can tap into aspects of you that you didn't know that existed, and you connect with those misplaced resources, you now have got the ability to get what you want out of life, whatever that is for you. Yeah. I hope I've answered your question.
I don't remember what it was,
Either do
but
I.
I love the journey. That's normally how life goes for me. Just even the journey.
I love it.
what is your current relationship with reconciling that paradox of like certainty and uncertainty? Because like in the example that you gave a moment ago, it's like that person says that they don't know, so they're creating certainty by not knowing what the thing is. How do we start to, you know, transcend or reconcile that paradox, recognizing that there is an element of already always having both of those things?
So you're asking how to transcend that?
Yeah.
To remember for the rest of your life something that is going to sound very simple, and that is you can't avoid doing hard things in life. So there's a difference between working hard and doing hard things. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who work hard, too hard, who don't do the right hard things. So doing hard things is huge. Now, the problem that people face with this is that they compare what's hard for them with what's hard for you or somebody else. And something that we need to all remember is whatever the hardest thing is that you've ever done, it's the hardest thing that you have ever done. I was coaching a lady many years ago who suffered from agoraphobia. She was stuck in her house for 2 years. Beautiful soul, but stuck. And the long and the short of it is, after a series of conversations and la-la-las, 2 months later from our conversation series, she got out of the house. She walked around the block. This block was about nearly 1 kilometre in diameter, or whatever the perimeter, whatever the mathematical term is. That was fair income, the hardest thing she's ever done. So when someone like that compares themselves to people who've done all these other hard things, it prevents them from acting. So we need to all remember, a great question to ask yourself is, what's the hardest thing you've ever done that's really stretched you? Well, good on you. That's the benchmark. Beat that, evolve around that, expand on that, grow from that. Doing hard things is pivotal to your mental well-being, to your energy, to everything, all your well-being, because the ultimate gift of certainty. So certainty, this is good. Comfort or certainty. Comfort is a reward, not a goal. Most people have certainty, security, safety, comfort as a goal. And the problem is that you'll land on the same thing everyone else has landed with that kind of thinking. You'll get there and then you'll start to get depressed, or you start to stop growing, or the energy just goes, But if you make certainty a reward, now you're living deeply. To give you an example, so I'm in the middle of a marathon program running, love it, love the challenge of it. And it's really hard. Like there are parts of it that are really hard. On the weekend, I just came off a 28K run, and currently as of the time of this recording, it's, in Noosa where I live, 97% humidity, and it was 22 degrees at 4:30 in the morning. So it was hard. The comfort of sitting down having a coffee after that run was phenomenal. It was one of the most beautiful, most perfect experiences in that moment that I could have in the world. You could put me anywhere in the world, I don't care. Just sitting down and having a good coffee after the waters and all the things we had was phenomenal. Now, that's simple. That's just sitting down. Why is sitting down such a pleasure? Because of the contrast with the hard thing. And that's another important word in living an emotionally fit life. Contrast. Contrast gives us meaning. Contrast adds depth to something as simple as sitting on a chair. But if you don't have the contrast of something hard, you're going to be experiencing shallowness, flatness. You're going to stop growing. You're vulnerable to depression, and I'm serious. That's what I love about that. So when even in business, in my work, when something's been done that's hard, just sitting for dinner with my sons and my wife, something simple, is magnificent. Contrast is everything. Without contrast, you're fudged. I wasn't sure if I'm allowed to swear here.
Yeah, you can swear.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. What would you label as the contrast to emotional fitness then?
Great question. Safety.
Okay.
Yeah, safety. Because safety only has meaning with that contrast. Yeah. Let me just think about that more. So my official definition of emotional fitness is about transforming your relationship with uncertainty. The opposite of that would be that you continue to correlate uncertainty with fear and you stay safe.
Yeah.
That would be the opposite.
Yeah. What's the distinction then between feeling safe and playing it safe then?
Great question. Feeling safe is something that you earn. Playing it safe is procrastination and sabotage.
How does someone go beyond that when they recognize that they're playing it safe? Then they've gone through whatever phase that they're in life, and they're doing it to a certain degree, and that's created a certain level of success. Like you recently recognizing that, you know, what you're doing in business, what worked 2 years ago no longer works today, and the half-life that's occurring of technology as it rises. How do we start to face off with that on a deeper level then?
By remembering that life is just a series of continual problems to be solved. Stick with that and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Just the problems will come at different rates, at different stages of life. The problems will be bigger, smaller, faster, slower. Because that means we are the bison. Because if we don't remember that, then we're going to be shirking the very thing that life needs us to embrace so we can honor the privilege of being alive. So important.
Yeah. What do you find is what is your definition of emotional fitness, but also then an emotion? Because there's like this group of people that are like, you know, emotions are bad. The more emotional you are, the blinder you are, all of these things. Yeah. What's your view on all of that?
Oh, you're going to love this, Cody.
Great.
I've got such a great answer. Well, hopefully I haven't set your expectations too high. We need to understand the difference between feelings and emotions to answer this. So emotions are fabricated by the ego. Emotions are echoes of the meaning that we've given something. So if I'm walking into this car park out here and the meaning I put on it is that car parks are dangerous because of all the reference points and that I've created in my life, I'm going to be emoting, just for the sake of using a different word to feeling. I'll be emoting or feeling scared, paranoid, etc. Those emotions are fabricated by the ego because the ego is a survival mechanism. Feelings are intuitive. They're content independent. They're detached from your story. They come fast and they leave you fast. It comes from your soul, your spirit, your heart. That's it takes courage to follow those feelings. The feeling of starting a new business, the feeling of leaving a relationship, beginning a relationship, moving here, doing that. Feelings have got nothing to do with your historical narrative. They are clean. They are clear, crisp. And as I said, they come and they go quick. That's what you follow. Emotions overdone is where now you are a slave to your story, a slave to your history, a slave to the meaning that you've given everything that you've experienced. And good luck with that. Emotional fitness is about shifting with awareness the meaning that you've been giving all these things by using all these frameworks that we've created, thought systems, so you can walk through that car park feeling okay, which is different to, because putting emotion, whether you emotionally feel or whether you're not, feelings are still there, but the quality of emotion is what we're looking to shift. So can I say something controversial?
Please.
Okay. At the risk of being misunderstood, and I do not mean any offense to anyone. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not what do you call it, a person that splits people. What do you call that? Anyway, so this is based on my psychology background. I've done thousands of hours of one-to-one. I don't do one-to-one anymore, but is whenever I've got someone, okay, we'll just go with it, who's had a trauma of some kind, and they've healed from it, or they've massively improved, progressed, evolved from it, is all we need to do is put all the ingredients back that were there for the trauma, and the trauma is relived. Emotions. There's a story attached to it. The past is nothing more than your current interpretation of it. The controversial thing is that I don't believe in it because it's a label. when you label something, you put a prison cell around it. I was listening to the Diary of a CEO, and he was interviewing this science/human behavioralist person, and she shared with us a case study of a woman that she was helping who was brought up in an environment where she lived with mum and dad. The dad was violent. She knew nothing else. She just knew that. It didn't actually affect her because there was no other outside noise. She just thought, this is how it is with the mum and dad. The dad's like that, the mum's like this. She went through school, great grades, great relationship, functional woman, got married, kids, like everything was healthy. Until one day, she's listening to an Oprah Winfrey show where they're interviewing a panel of women who've experienced all these different versions of violence. Now, by the way, violence is a very real thing. I'm not minimizing it. I'm not disrespecting it. This is what happened. These ladies were and there was an expert on there putting all these labels on what they had experienced. And then there was one there that resonated with her because it was like, oh my God, that's like me. And then she put a label on it. She became traumatized. It started affecting her life. She started second guessing herself, second thinking. She started to doubt everything. After living for 30 years, trauma-free. Emotions keep us trapped in our traumas. And once we disassemble the ingredients that created that trauma and this is another way of looking at emotional fitness, and you become emotionally flexible, which means you can create new stories, new interpretations of 2026 and what men are, what women are, what relationships are, what life means, et cetera, you can't connect to that. It's like this, Cody. If you tuned into 101 FM, listening to 1980s music, that's all you're going to get. You can't hear the talkback radio. You can't hear the classical music. You can't hear that one. You can't hear this one. You can't hear that one. You just experience what you tuned into. And if we continually tune into Trauma FM, Past FM, that's the music that's going to play in our heart and soul. But if we're tuning into What I Want to Become FM, it's different. So I don't know if that was controversial, but the point I want to make is I just want to say that I think there's too much focus on it.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Because it's right now. Like, where's the problem right now? What's the problem right now?
Yeah.
So, again, I don't recall the question.
Perfect. I was thinking it's very, very pertinent in terms of one of the trainings that we're running for our certification tonight is like all in this vein. And I was thinking about it on the way here. It's this interesting thing that there's this group of people that label something trauma, and then there's another person, they have all of the symptoms of trauma over here, and then there's this other person over here which is neurodivergent, exactly the same symptoms, and it's just a different label. And now this neurodivergence label is becoming so mainstream and accepted because then you've got your community of all of the people that are all ADHD and neurodivergent, all these things over here, and then the people that are resisting over here, the exact same symptoms, being traumatized because that has a negative connotation based on, again, the language that we give to it. But again, all that's occurring in either instance is they're just disconnecting from the potentiality to be able to create a label of outsourcing their power to that thing to, ironically give them some level of certainty, which is playing out because then they fit in with this group of people, or they've got a reason why they are the way that they are, or in this instance, go through an experience where they've created this thing where they've lived their entire life and now they're starting to question who they are based on something that they've heard, based on certain things which are not appropriate based on, your upbringing and things like that, and create an entire world of that. And what it really brings me to is one of the core principles that we talk about is, your word builds your world. And you're always building your entire reality of how you see the world linguistically. Yes, you can shift that, but also it's like honoring where people are at with those things, which was why I love, the way that you framed each of those pieces. How do we then create in the world when we currently live in a world filled with labels?
Great question. So there's a difference between labeling and pattern recognition. So the ADHD person, for example, I did a whole presentation on this at my emotional fitness conference on neurodivergence and separating it from neurodiversity, because we're all neurodiverse. That's a whole other conversation. But it's important that if you have got, for example, ADHD, that you recognize the pattern. It's like, I recognize my behavioral profile. I recognize that I am this, the patterns. I recognize what kind of vehicle I'm in. but it's not who you are. It's not a label. You don't use the label to then justify your smallness or your bigness or anyiness. You don't use it to defend or protect yourself or use it as an excuse for anything. But I want to reiterate, pattern recognition is so important. So you are aware of what's driving your bus and what's driving your construct of your perception of reality. That's the difference. I'm going to pretend that you've just asked me a question of what are the 3 most important things then when it comes to your emotional fitness? So because it's related to this, right? It's related to this.
Yeah.
3 important things. No labeling, embrace challenge, and remember for the rest of your life that life is impersonal. It's impersonal, experienced intimately, personally, but impersonal. It's like if you stub your toe on that rock out there, are you going to be offended by the rock? Absolutely. Of course not. It's stupid. It's dumb. Of course not. But yet, how many times do we take the road rager who yells at us personally? When anyone in your position with that crazy person yelling at you like that, they'd be experiencing exactly the same thing. Just like 10 people who stub their toe on that rock are going to experience the pain of that stubbornness of the rock. It's not the rock's fault. You fall down a little side of a hill that's got full of snow and your arms are exposed to the snow and you feel that burn of the snow on your skin. Are you going to take that personally? So if you take life impersonally, immerse ironically in the intimacy of it, immerse deeply, but realize ultimately this has got nothing to do with me. It's impersonal. And you don't label and you embrace challenge. The challenge labels impersonal. You take on those 3 things in your awareness everywhere that you go, life is phenomenal. Now you're the bison. Does that make sense? So quite often I'm easily misunderstood when I say that life is impersonal, but everything is. Everything is. If you think about it profoundly, it is. And I'll add to it, like I've already said, and it's experienced intimately. But it's not about you. So anyway.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We personalize things and that allows us to be able to then create specific identities that perpetuate how we see ourselves beyond that. Yeah. And it creates this interesting dynamic that plays out with our identity. It's like, oh, well, you know, they did this to me, and then I can create an identity of being a victim in that, and then I can then create an entire narrative to be able to continue to see myself in the same way by having something done to me, rather than recognizing one of my favorite quotes with it is, you can't trigger people. People can only be triggered on you. And most of the time what we're doing is we're trying to not trigger people and we're like, oh, we don't want to hurt people or any of those things. And it's like, well, no, we don't actually have the power to be able to do that. They're going to create their narrative around whatever plays out. That's got actually nothing to do with you unless you take it personally. Because as soon as you take it personally, then you stop being you and then you start putting on a mask, you start putting on an act, you start doing what other people need of you rather than actually being who you truly are.
Yeah, spot on. It's like the angry person. If someone's being angry with you, it says more about them than it does about you. And it's important to remember that. The challenge is that if you're not aware of this conversation you and I are having even existing, it's easy to confuse the intimate experience with taking it personally. So that's a key delineation there that we need to remember.
How does someone, you said that earlier, 95% of it is creating awareness. Yeah. So how do we expand our awareness?
Pattern recognition. It's circling back to where we started this conversation. It's learning about your patterns and what drives you. It's like, I sometimes talk about what kind of car are you? Are you a four-wheel drive, a Formula One, an SUV, a little Mini? Because if you're a SUV and you find yourself on a Formula One track and you're comparing yourself to the Formula One cars because you don't see patterns, and suddenly it's like, why aren't I good enough? Why can't I keep up with these cars? I can't turn the corner like that guy can. There must be something wrong with me. Woe is me. And on goes the drama and the story. Then someone comes along and says, are you aware that your patterns don't suit this particular territory that you're in? You work really well in the mountains that these guys can't even begin to climb. What do you mean? What's a mountain? It's a different world that aligns to your Pattern. What patterns? You've got big wheels. These guys have got small wheels. You've got this type engine. They've got that. They're low to the ground. You're high. Oh, I didn't recognize that. I didn't see that. So when you see the patterns, that is 95% of the journey. I reckon it's 99, because once you see the pattern no longer owns you, and you can make a conscious decision to act differently or override the pattern or change the pattern. It's to give you a simple example, one of the other areas of emotional fitness other than identity is emotional flexibility, and it's having an appreciation and an understanding that, let's just say there's a busy street, you're on one side, I'm on the other side, and I see Cody. Oh, I remember Cody. I wave to Cody, and you don't wave back. Now, in that moment, I'm making a decision on whether I'm aware of it or whether I'm not, whether I'm aware of this pattern or whether I'm not, it's happening. There are 3 levels of truth that we get to choose from. The first level is imagined truth. So that's where I knew it. He doesn't like me. He never did. He's always looked at me funny. I don't know about this guy. And I add story here. 15 minutes later, I'm still milling and mulling in this emotion. We know that psychologically it's a fact that within 2 or 3 hours, if you stay in that emotion, it transforms into a mood. That mood, every morning you got an opportunity to reset your consciousness, and everything resets like the ocean does with the land. But no, I've got to go back. Oh yeah, that's right, Cody. Gee, why didn't he write back to me? And I'm add to the story. Now my mood over a series of days will eventually become part of my temperament. Or if I go back and I go, I'm a pattern recognizer. There are 3 levels of truth. There's imagined level of truth. So how do I know he doesn't like me? I don't. What, based on what evidence? None. What reference points do you have around that? None. So how do you know that to be true? I don't. What are you getting out of it? Oh, I get to stay away from Cody. And then the second level of truth is assumed truth, where same situation, same 2 people, I wave, you don't wave, and he just didn't see me. It's neutralized. I'm aware of the pattern. Or I live a 3rd level of truth, which is actual truth. So you've got imagined, assumed, and actual. And at actual level of truth, it's just purely the facts. Cody's on one side of the street, I'm on the other side of the street. I waved, he didn't wave back, no further commentary, nothing, and you move on. And that's an example of pattern recognition overriding a potential experience that can destroy your day emotionally. So, yeah, that's what 95% of the journey being awareness, or 99% even, means, is that you're aware of what's driving. So you're aware of your identity, who you are. You're aware of, and this is how the formula works. It's like, who are you? Where are you on the journey? Your life stages. So where are you on the journey from ambition to meaning, and where do you sit? What values do you have? Now, values is something fascinating, Cody, because it is such a misunderstood aspect of the psychological landscape of every person. Because a value is a verb. It's something they actually do. It's an activity that brings you joy. There's a lot more to it than that. So if you know what brings you joy in your life and you've got multiple vehicles for that, phenomenal, that helps with your emotional fitness. Then you've got emotional flexibility, and then a final one is perspective. These are all macro pattern families that when you recognize them in everyday living, life no longer has you by the proverbials, because you are aware. That's what it means to be aware.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Most people don't look at it through those different lenses of the levels of truth either. They're just filtered through one of them.
Yeah.
There's kind of 2 things that are there for me with it, which is, the first is it's based on like Brené Brown's work. So she says that the greatest gift in life is to be both the map maker and the map maker and the
territory?
No. Greatest joy in life is to be both it's like the map maker and the something else. And whatever the rest of the quote is, doesn't matter. The core component is, in the work that she talks about, there's, vulnerability is defined as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. If we continually go down the pattern recognition pathway, does that mean that if we're no longer going into uncertainty, are we then creating us not actually being vulnerable and moving from the experience of what's there for us into our head?
It's the opposite. Pattern recognition allows us to go into uncertainty. It's the opposite. You embrace uncertainty because of the pattern recognition. You realize the patterns of life and how they actually function. It's the opposite. So you will be more open to vulnerability. You will be more open to the emotional and feeling experience of life and all of its ups and downs. You will, in fact, it'll actually help you experience everything deeper, whether it's from the joy to the most difficult of things. So that's the opposite.
Yeah. Now I got it. the quote, classic. Yeah. So she also says that the greatest gift in the world is to be both the map maker and the explorer going into uncharted territories. So it's that dance of actually being the person who's willing to be able to pave your own path while also creating the map while you're doing it, to be able to create that level of pattern recognition for other people, so that then that allows them to be able to create speed in their life as well, because then they can recognize that pattern much faster if you've recognized it first. And especially in that time that we're in right now, which is that time of really starting to recognize that things are moving faster than ever. The what I mentioned earlier is that technology, as it rises, and the half-life of that, it takes half the amount of time to be able to do it. So things just exponentially move faster and faster and faster. And that means change moves faster and faster and faster. And then we're left in that uncertainty that used to be, the uncertainty kind of life cycle we would go through would be years, and now it's becoming months, and it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter in terms of how quick things are changing. What do we do when we're faced off with that the time that it took us to be able to grow and evolve is now half of what it used to be?
Can I tell you a story?
Yes.
So answering that question and going all the way back to the map, being the map creator and the path creator, something, is I remember many years ago, I was taking one of my sons. He would have been 7 at the time, so twin boys. One of them, for some reason, I was just with one of them this particular morning, taking him to school. We're walking out the front door, and there's a snail. And Oliver says, Dad, look out, there's a snail. You don't want to crush it? Yep. And he's looking at it. He says, Dad, what's that? What is that behind the snail? And intelligently I said, Hun, that's the snail trail. That's what the snail leaves behind when it moves. So why does it do that? How does that work? I said, I don't know. So I Googled on my phone. So, it's the ooze and the squeeze of the ooze and the whatever it is that it oozes out so it can glide. So that's how it moves. And as it moves, this ooze stays in the ground. And so where it goes, the path is behind it. And then I had an epiphany as I'm talking to him. So, oh my God, Oliver, I just realized something. He goes, what, Dad? He's looking at me like, you're strange. I said, the path, it's behind the snail. It's not in front of the snail. It doesn't exist. So life is a pathless land. It really is. Everything that whatever you're doing to be here, it's done. The path is created. And it's when we try to go back to the path that was behind the snail. No snail's ever moonwalked back behind their trail. Not that I'm aware of. They can only move forward. So if your attitude toward life is there is no path to look for or follow other than be guided by your intuition, your feelings, and a whole host of other things, is that regardless, and pattern recognition. So pattern recognition is not just within yourself. It's pattern recognition in economies, in markets, in avatars, in Australia, in whatever you're looking at. So if we've noticed that the half-life is getting like this, okay, I need to change the way I'm moving, but it's not that because I don't change the way I'm moving because I've got to find a new path. It's just the path I'm leaving behind is going to be different. And so when you see the pattern of what's changing in front of you in that market, in that avatar, etc., you respond in kind. That's I reckon one of the reasons why I'm still here 20 years later doing this. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but
yeah, perfectly. And I think it kind of leads me to like that next metaphor as well is, when you're paving your own path, you're creating it easier for everyone else to be able to slip in behind you. If you're doing it as a marathon, it's much easier to run behind someone it is to be leading the pack in a sprint, as an example, because it allows people to be able to then get into that slipstream so that it just becomes much easier. And, we fall back.
That's interesting. That's not my experience of the marathons I've run is different.
Yeah.
I run it independently of, I love the energy of the crowd and everything like the Gold Coast Marathon coming up, there'll be 20, 30,000 people there. I'm aware of all the people around me. The energy is great. But I've never run a race where I'm tracking myself based on trying to chase this next guy and the next guy and the next guy. I just track it on how am I doing compared to me? How am I doing compared to me? How am I doing compared? How are you doing right now? How are you doing right now? How are you doing right now? I have a different sort of view on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's been my experience.
Yeah. I think it's different with running as well. Because if you think about it in terms of like car racing, it's more obvious as well because you get the slipstream a lot more
because of the speed.
Yeah. Because
and bike riding as well.
Yeah, as well. Because it has that dynamic of where you can actually start to get into that slipstream to be able to then do that.
True.
And also the people that are most successful in either of those things is going to be the people that actually are comparing them to themselves rather than comparing them to everyone else.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you fall into that trap, then, it just becomes this downward spiral.
Well, the ambition-driven world and the meaning-driven world, one of the several things that delineates the two differently is the ambition-driven world is all about comparing yourself to others. How do you know that you're first? In comparison. How do you know if you're last? In comparison. How do you know where you're at? In comparison. How do I measure progress? In comparison to the meaning-driven world is about focusing on who you want to become. So it's about comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. It's all inside, internal, whereas the ambition-driven world is external. Completely different, but yeah.
Yeah. If someone was facing off with a level of uncertainty that they've never experienced before, they've stepped into a challenge that they've never experienced before, what would you say to them if they're going through that right now?
That's a great question. It depends on what it is. The purest form of uncertainty is where there are no reference points. And when you understand that, it's you giving yourself permission to embrace it even more. Because you go, well, this is the nature of this particular beast. I've never done this before. It's an unfamiliar experience. This is where you were mentioning words and language. I love that, what you said before about that. This is where when you're in an uncertain situation you've never been in before, be aware of the language that's oozing through you or what you're using to describe that experience to yourself. Because the fact is that brand new uncertainty experience has got no reference points. It might feel hard, but the truth is it's not. It's just unfamiliar. And when you shift from hard to unfamiliar in that context, I'm going to be very, very clear. Obviously, there are things in life that are really hard. You lose someone that you love, something happens that's really comes to an end, something that you care about comes to an end. It's hard. That's not unfamiliar. That's hard. But going back to your point, if it's something that you've never experienced before, just be aware of using the word unfamiliar rather than the word hard, because the word hard is dead end, it's heavy, and it's a block and it doesn't move. Unfamiliar is curiosity, open-mindedness. Wonder what the next step is from here. I've never been here before. I wonder what happens next. Curiosity is what's bred through using the word unfamiliar. So that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the perfect thing to wrap up on. This has been fun.
Wow, this has been so good.
Yeah. What's the best way for people to find you?
joepane.com.au. Our latest, we run regular free events, and that's on the website there. So yeah, joepane.com.au or at Joe Pane Insights is the handle to all the socials.
Epic. Great. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, Cody. Really appreciate it.
All good.